Okay, so today we're going to talk about The Secrets of Dumbledore, the new Harry Potter Fantastic Beasts film. Let's get straight to it. So anyone that knows me will know that I am a big Harry Potter fan. J.K. Rowling aside, let's ignore that situation for the moment, but Harry Potter was kind of something I grew up on. I loved the books, read them all so many times, all the time. Read the seventh one when it came out in a day when I was on holiday. It was that hardcore level of, Harry Potter fandom. So I'm always going to go into these films a little bit biased, so bear that in mind. However, saying that, I thought the first one was average. I was like, okay, it's a film set in the universe. It's kind of, a fun character, some nice, fun, fantastic beasts and stuff, and that's fine. And I thought the second one was really, really quite bad. Now, when I like a franchise, like Harry Potter, Star Wars, something like that, I feel like it's unusual for me to kind of come out of something disliking it. Like 9 times out of 10, it's going to be, yeah, that's fine. It wasn't the best, but it's fine. And the second Fantastic Beasts film, which I can't even remember what it was called, Crimes of Grindelwald, was it? Honestly, for me, really, really weak film, and it left me really, really disappointed because I want these films to be good. I think this is a good universe with interesting characters, and especially with the ties into the Dumbledore and that kind of stuff. I was very, very let down by the second one. So the good thing is that I thought this one was much better. And yeah, okay, fair enough, that's quite a low bar. I'm not exactly saying the film's incredible just because it's better than one that I thought was bad. But I think this film is very competent, it's much more fun, it's got a lot more going on, possibly a little bit too much going on still, but there are interesting characters, fun situations, decent action, decent kind of, intrigue and stuff like that, and it ticks along at a much better pace. I think the worst thing that can be said for any film, and I definitely had this issue with the second one, is boring. You do not want a film to be boring. It can be slow, it can be slow paced, it can be methodical, all those kind of things can be true without something being boring. What boring really means is not slow, it means it's not engaging. It means there's nothing in it that's going to grab you, there's no interesting characters or stories to kind of hold on to, and that's what the second one was for me. This film, for the most part, not boring, so that's a plus. Okay, so what's good about the film? I think one thing that's definitely worth mentioning is the relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, which obviously was alluded to in the books. Never kind of explicitly said what kind of format the relationship was. Obviously, J.K. Rowling came out and afterwards and said Dumbledore was gay. That kind of solidified, what the relationship was. If that wasn't really clear potentially in the original books, again, that might be kind of something she could have kind of doubled down on and made it very clear, but she didn't, and that's fine. In this film, that is made very clear. They do not shy away from it. They were in a romantic gay relationship. Dumbledore was in love with Grindelwald and, vice versa, and you've got to give the film some props for kind of making that clear, at least at English markets, because I know it's been censored out in the Chinese market, which I think is disgraceful and Warner Brothers shouldn't let happen, but that's another topic. But yeah, that's something that the film's really got going for it. I think it's interesting to see that in a mainstream film. In this kind of genre, it's not something we actually see too often, even now, which is really bad. So that's good. That brings me on to the second best thing about this film, I think, which is Mads Mikkelsen. Now, again, this film and this whole franchise now is kind of marred in controversy. Even if you can look past J.K. Rowling, you've then got the Johnny Depp situation, Warner Brothers dropping him, which, rightfully or wrongfully, maybe it was a little bit premature, but probably was the right move. At the end of the day, these studios do not want to be involved in controversy. I think you have to accept that they didn't want Johnny Depp attached regardless of the outcome of, his trials and Amber Heard's trials and all that kind of stuff. So I think once you move past that and accept that they didn't want him involved because of that, it makes more sense. However, I will say, potentially a blessing in disguise because I thought Mads Mikkelsen was excellent as Grindelwald. The thing that I thought coming out of cinema, and my girlfriend agreed with me, was that Mads Mikkelsen's Grindelwald is a much more believable romantic partner for Dumbledore. I think Jude Law plays a really good young Dumbledore. I think he kind of, maybe this time, made more of an effort to kind of link it to the older Dumbledore. I still think it's weird that they don't try and have any of the accent the same. Like, did Dumbledore's accent just change in the kind of years between? But, you can look past that. You want actors to act in the best way, and kind of maybe forcing an accent on someone wouldn't be helpful in that. But yeah, I thought the relationship between Grindelwald and Dumbledore in this one was much, much better. And I think Mads Mikkelsen contributed to that a lot. I think his screen presence is great. I think he's great in almost every film he's in. But I think he really holds the kind of caring but charismatic character much better. Johnny Depp's Grindelwald was fun to watch. It was charismatic. He had a lot of personality. But I just never felt that he had that relationship with Dumbledore, and I didn't really believe that. Whereas I think with Mads Mikkelsen in this film, that is much more believable. So that's something that's definitely a pro for this film. As with the first one and the second one, the plot kind of goes here, there, and everywhere, and traipse them around looking for stuff and trying to find things, and a lot of that doesn't really come to anything, and it's a problem these films still have. A lot of the time it feels like people are going on adventures because they need something to do, not because the adventure is really worthwhile, and that's something that I really hope they can kind of get on top of for the next one, if they do a next one, and work something out that's interesting for the characters, because that's really detrimental to the film. That leads me on to the thing I like the least about this film, which unfortunately is a problem the second one had as well, and I think a problem this franchise is going to continue to have. For me, the interesting story in this franchise is the rise of Grindelwald and the relationship with Dumbledore. That is something that carried on from the original books. It's something that we already had background to. Every time they add stuff into that, like the Credence situation in this film, which I won't spoil, but the way they tie that into Dumbledore's backstory, that's really interesting. That's engaging. That's that word I was looking for. But I think all the characters that aren't directly related to Dumbledore just don't feel as useful, and they kind of feel pointless, and that's a really big problem for these films. I liked Newt Scamander in the first film. I think he was interesting. He's a fun character. I love his relationship with the animals and stuff, and seeing that kind of backstory was really fun. However, this franchise has gone down the route of being the Dumbledore Grindelwald's backstory, and Newt Scamander just feels tacked onto that. It's one of those scenarios where you know as an audience member that he is being tacked into these stories because he was in the first film, because he's a big actor and a big star, and they don't want to drop him. And that's a real issue because it makes the story feel kind of like unrealistic. It's like you're watching this Dumbledore story which you're interested in and engaged in as a Harry Potter fan, and then they've got to find a way to get Newt Scamander involved, and they've got to find a way to get all his cronies and pals involved as well, and that's where the film and the whole franchise at this point feels really weak for me. Personally, I think it would be a really bold decision, but the best decision for the franchise if they just dropped Newt at this point, or at least made him a real backseat character and kind of didn't shoehorn him into the franchise at all. I'd also drop most of the rest of the characters. I think a lot of them are kind of uninteresting and fill the same role. I thought a few of the supporting actors that were in this one that were new were good. They were fun. But again, they just kind of feel like a team that's there to kind of push the plot forward and not really have much to do. So yeah, if they do continue this franchise, which, I mean, I hope they do because this hasn't got a conclusive ending yet. And I want to see where this goes. I want to see the kind of, conclusion to this story they're telling. But I know these films aren't doing very well. And there's rumours at the moment that Warner Brothers are looking at basically how well this film does to decide if they do more. It would be sad if they don't, but then you've got to make good films so people go and see them. I don't want to be overly negative on the franchise as a whole, but to have taken the Harry Potter license, which is so popular, and make 3 films that 2 of which seem to be not doing very well and aren't critically very well received and also don't sell very well, like that really says someone somewhere has fucked up. And in reality, I think who's fucked up is the writer, which happens to be partially J.K. Rowling. It's very hard to know what goes on behind the scenes, and I don't want to kind of allude to, things that we really don't know. But when you take an author and make them a screenwriter and kind of just let them have free reign on that, which is a very, very different role, I'm not surprised when it doesn't necessarily create the best script. Now, I know the guy who did the script for Harry Potter came in on this one and is a co-writer of the script, the screenplay, and I think you can tell, like, it's better, that helps. I personally would like to see them drop J.K. Rowling's involvement in the screenplay, let her write the story, obviously it's her world, but bring someone else in to actually write the screenplay and kind of really take that art, that craft away from someone who's not good at that craft. Like, it's clearly not something that she can do very well. So that's where I'd like to see the franchise taken next. And I do think we'll get more. I think they'll do the 4th and 5th and finish these out. Who knows what we'll get next in the Harry Potter world, because as I said, these haven't been very well received. So that might have tailed off into a slightly negative kind of take, but I actually did enjoy this film. I enjoyed it much more than I potentially thought I was going to. Maybe I had kind of a low expectation bar, which might have helped, but this is a fun film. This is much more engaging, much more interesting. There's more going on. Where it kind of leaves the franchise, I think, is also interesting now, and I would like to see them do at least 1 more, maybe 2 more might be dragging it out. So yeah, if you're a Harry Potter fan, I'd say go and see this film. You're going to enjoy it more than the second. Don't be put off too much if you didn't love the second one. If you did, then obviously you're going to love it anyway. I've toyed with the idea of doing ratings for films and TV and stuff, because I know people like to kind of know what number you'd give it out of 10 or whatever. So I think this one for me would be a 7 out of 10. Like, it's a decent film. It's potentially a good film, but it's nowhere near great. It's nothing, it's not going to excel. So yeah, that was my hopefully not too long review on Fantastic Beasts: Secrets of Dumbledore, which is a very confusing naming convention at this point. So I'll see you next time.